Okay, we'll call the meeting to order. Would everyone rise for the invocation? And Pastor Riley Grandel, would you please come forward from the Gulf Shore Church?
Let's pray. Lord, as we come together for this meeting tonight, we're reminded in your word that you exhort us to lift up and to pray for our leaders, and also to pray for those who are in service to our nation. So as we come together as one, we just lift up those who are in service to us, those that are in the military and our first responders who in fact make it possible for us to have this kind of a meeting. And Lord, we thank you for your hand to be upon the leadership of this nation, of this state, of this county, and particularly tonight, that your hand will be upon the leadership of the city of Bonita Springs, to help them, Lord, with their wisdom and understanding as they make decisions that affect each and every one of us. So guide them and direct them in each of their steps. And Lord, I just thank you that your presence will be felt here, and that we ask all of these things in the name of our Lord. Amen.
Amen. Amen.
Councilman, could you lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance?
Be my honor, sir. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thanks so much.
Roll call, please.
Councilman McIntosh. Councilwoman Martin. Here. Councilman Slachta.
Here.
Mayor Nelson.
Here.
Councilman Simmons.
Here.
Councilman Gibson.
Here.
Councilman Longcart.
Here.
Good evening, everyone.
Good evening, Mayor.
And here we go with another meeting. Roll call's been done, and public comment is on agenda items only. Anyone wishing to speak at this time, any member of the public, please come forward and speak on any agenda item.
Good evening.
Hello.
I'm Carolyn Gallagher from Cedar Creek. I wish to commend the city for being forward-thinking with the resolution opposing the seismic airgun testing in the Gulf of Mexico, and I urge the city to unanimously endorse it. These horrific noises made in the search of oil and gas in the Gulf do harm and kill the marine mammals and fish, and they disrupt the food chain and the Gulf Coast economic well-being. Our city's approval could also be viewed as a step toward ultimately rejecting the controversial fracking that is being used in Florida and other states. Similarly, the U.S. Navy is testing sonar on both the east and west coast of the U.S., and most likely in the Gulf, too. The noise from this testing does similar damage to the fish and marine mammals that seismic airgun testing does. Could our city consider adding opposition to sonar testing to this resolution, or perhaps consider a sister resolution to cover this issue? Thank you for listening.
Thank you.
Hi, I'm Deb McLean, publisher of the Banana Peel, and I want to thank the city, or recognize the city, for getting its award for starting the Complete Streets program, and that means I would like to talk about agenda item 13B, which talks about a sidewalk on Racetrack Road for bicycle riders. Complete Streets is not about sidewalks for bicycle riders, and in order to be in compliance with the award you just got, Old 41 and any other road should have a lane dedicated to bicycling, rickshaws, walkers, whatever, but the roads will be shared equally with pedestrians, bicycles, and cars. And that is, I believe, the push for complete streets. So the Old 41 design needs to be tweaked to include a bicycle route on the street. And when you think about sidewalks, that's nice for walking people, but it still does not address bicycles. It's not, hey, get off the road. It's, hey, you're welcome on the road, follow the road rules, stop at the stop signs and lights just like the vehicles. And we will respect you. We vehicles will respect you on the road. And that's the education point that's so hard. That's it.
Thank you. Anyone else this time? Please come forward.
Mr. Mayor, council members, hi. My name is Ray Judah. I'm the coordinator with the Florida Coastal and Ocean Coalition. I want to thank you very much for having the particular item on the agenda that was spoken of earlier from a previous speaker, and that's the opposition to seismic air gun blasting. I have to tell you that you will not be alone should you approve this resolution in opposition to seismic air gun blasting, there are some 15 cities in the state of Florida that have already adopted resolutions in opposition, and several of them are St. Petersburg and Marco Island and also St. Augustine. But what's really important here is that we continue with the momentum to get other municipalities and counties throughout the state of Florida to oppose seismic air gun blasting, because the Bureau of Ocean Energy Management just recently adopted a 5-year plan for the mid and South Atlantic states with regards to oil and gas exploration off the Atlantic. Florida, fortunately, was not included with offshore oil drilling and exploration for the next 5 years between 2017 and 2022. However, this archaic methodology of air gun blasting, which is extremely dangerous and harmful to marine life, and of course that includes our whales and dolphins and turtles and also fish, actually continued potentially to be allowed for the exploration off the coast of Florida. And what we're trying to accomplish here is to muster up enough grassroots support to get the attention of the Bureau of Ocean and Energy Management and the Department of Interior to absolutely prohibit any seismic air gun blasting. There's actually better technology that's out there, and the oil industry needs to embrace that and pay the cost of being able to provide the type of sound waves that are not injurious to marine life. With that, I'm here to answer any questions and concerns that you might have when the item comes before you. Thank you very much.
Commissioner Judy, thank you very much. Anyone else this time, please come forward. Seeing none, we'll go ahead and continue on with the consent agenda. Council, take a quick look at that. Items A through E. Is there anything you would wish to pull from there, or do you want to go ahead and approve?
I'll move to approve.
Motion to approve. Is there a second? There's a motion and a second. Any other discussion? Roll call, please.
Councilwoman Martin?
Aye.
Councilman Slapta?
Aye.
Mayor Nelson?
Aye.
Councilman Simmons?
Aye.
Councilman Gibson?
Aye.
Councilman Longcart?
Aye.
Councilman McIntosh?
Aye.
Okay, we are to item 8, first reading and a public hearing of the following ordinance. Audrey.
Thank you. This is an amendment to the Bonita Springs Land Development Code, Chapter 4, zoning, amending sections 4-866, 4-868, and 4-869 to revise the exhibits and the uses permitted in the old US 41 redevelopment overlay district, expanding the redevelopment master plan to include both sides of Industrial Street, allowing a conversion factor for mixed-use projects, providing for conflicts of law, severability, codification, Scrivener's errors, inclusion in code, and an effective date. This is a first reading. It is a land use ordinance, so public comment will be taken at this time. However, I've reviewed the affidavit of publication. It is legally sufficient. However, prior to public comment, staff would like to speak about the ordinance, and that will be Jackie Genson and Jay Sweet. Jackie? Or I can talk. No.
All right, for the record, Jacqueline Genson with Community Development. I did have a presentation available, but we're having some technical difficulties. So we'll go ahead and get that rolling for you. But just to give you some background why we're here, and we went into this in some detail when we did the request to advertise. But back in August of last year, we came to you with the idea to expand the overlay to where it made sense. And that was encompassing the west portion of Industrial Street to the railroad right-of-way, south of Tennessee Street, and north of Bonita Beach Road to create a logical connection. Within that sub-area, we were going to create, in the industrial area, an arts district, which council was favorable of, and then where the area that encompasses the existing Bonita Beach Road corridor area, we would go ahead and honor those uses. So this is what that amendment is here for today. We did go ahead and create the industrial mixed-use overlay with adding some uses that would allow some artist lofts, microbreweries, coffee shops, kind of your nitty-gritty industrial uses to create that artsy district. We also, as part of this amendment process, created what's called an intensity and density factor to where only parcels within the mixed-use sub-areas, which is defined specifically on the redevelopment area map as areas 6A, 6B, would be allowed to convert some of their leftover floor area ratio for commercial and convert that into residential dwelling units, so long as they met a very specific set of criteria. So that conversion factor is in there. And then we also went ahead and modified the use tables to add some uses to complement the industrial arts district, and then add some uses where we have come into them, or they've come into question as we've been doing use permits throughout the city, and just clarified some of those uses. We also went ahead and created some further standards for outdoor dining and chairs, and then an outdoor display section for this area of downtown, because the other section in our code is for the suburban areas of the city, which in downtowns it's a much different environment than your downtown core area. And I'm going to quickly go over here and do Thank you, and my sincerest apologies for that. Okay, so this is where we are. To go over the expansion area. This is the downtown overlay in this cross-hatched area. The area that we are proposing to add is this little sliver right here. And as you can see, it just creates that rational connection to expand that overlay. And this is a blown up area of that area. The area in the red is for the Bonita Beach Road corridor uses, which is the same uses that these properties have today. So we're not taking anything away, we're not adding anything. Those uses in this area are governed by the Bonita Beach Road corridor. In this area here, we have the Industrial Arts District area where we're proposing to add some complementary uses to go ahead and create that Industrial Arts District. Just to let you know, we do have some ongoing discussions with the Shangri-La property owners. We had some very positive discussions with them. They're having some outside counsel look at this, but we're pretty sure we're going to get the green light to go ahead and make this expansion work. So we're just waiting on that in a couple of days. The intensity-density conversion, as I stated before, it's only in areas 6A and 6B. So you'll see 6A and 6B are this pink colored in the downtown area, and that is where you have your vertical mixed use all in one building. And again, this conversion is based on trip generation. So what it does is it looks at the leftover square footage that's allowed for commercial uses. The maximum in this area is a 1.2 floor area ratio. But if we have a project that doesn't utilize that total maximum floor area ratio, they can take that extra square footage, and we do this conversion formula based on trip generation, and we convert it into residential units. And they have to meet specific criteria. So for every 400 square feet of commercial uses, it's equal to one residential dwelling unit. So that's how the conversion formula works. And I do have Jay Sweet here who can answer additional questions at the end if you need to. The use table, as I stated before, we are adding some uses. So if there's any questions, they're pretty self-explanatory in the table with the strike through and underline. But we went ahead and added uses such as the microbreweries, caterers, internet cafes, just things that we are seeing that are coming up in the horizon. Some of them are specific to that sub-area 11. Some are in other sub-areas. But we went ahead and added those uses. We clarified and modified some existing uses, such as pet daycare is very popular for some reason, and grooming, so we wanted to go ahead and make that difference in there. And also the assembly and place of worship. What we're finding a lot lately is we have a lot of what we call storefront churches that are occupying viable commercial retail space. And the city definitely wants to allow those uses, but in areas where, and other areas of part of downtown where these groups are going to make Bonita Springs permanently their home. We also added notes for donated goods and how we would allow those in the city. And then manufacturing in our sub-area 11. We definitely want to encourage the decorative arts, furniture manufacturing, but we want it to be indoors. So there's a note relative to that. And then there's a process outlined for amplified and non-amplified music. It was silent before, so we went ahead and took the opportunity to go ahead and define that. Outside dinings and chairs, this is an existing section. We just went ahead and elaborated on it some more to make it more definitive. And we went ahead and looked at location, operation, and then the types and tables and chairs. Some jurisdictions do go ahead and limit that, and it's to create a certain ambiance and a feeling of your downtown. So we went ahead and put in some standards for that. The outdoor display, as I stated before, the code right now is more suburban in nature. So for downtown, we wanted to do something different. So I went ahead and did some research with the City of Naples, City of Winter Park, City of Gulfport, that have these standards in place already. And we went ahead and modeled certain portions of those codes where we felt it was appropriate for our downtown. Coordinated it with code enforcement, so it's definitely a code that's enforceable. We do require a permit for this, and there is a permit process. It is administrative. And this allows us to look at the location of the display, make sure it's maintained well, it's items that are going to go ahead and create that positive shopping environment that the city is looking for. It allows us to look at the display area limits. This is not applicable to special events. It's just applicable to permanent businesses that want to display their goods that they're selling inside, outside for additional public view. There is an amortization period because we do have some businesses that do have existing outdoor displays outside. So that was one of the recommendations that code enforcement wanted us to put in here, and we do agree. So that is also in this document. Other than that, that is a overview of the changes ahead of you. Jay and I are here for any specific questions you might have.
Counselor, you got any questions?
Yes, please.
Yeah, go ahead, Steve.
Could we go back to slide 2 where you have the different zonings and the areas? Up one more. Again. Oh,
I'm sorry.
yeah, that's it.
Yeah.
Explain to us again what an 8A is exactly.
8A is actually hospitality. That is the Shangri-La Hotel.
Well, not all that's Shangri-La. On the other side of Oak Creek, there's WBG has units there, right?
I think WBG is on the south side of the road.
On the sub 11?
Sub 11.
I believe he's in sub area 11. Is that correct?
Is that
Yeah,
Tennessee?
he's at the corner.
Is that Tennessee that goes through there?
Mhm.
Okay, and just explain to me again sub 11.
Sub area 11 right now is considered the industrial work-live section of the downtown redevelopment area. And what we would like to do is create more of a industrial arts atmosphere. So it's allowing microbreweries, some light fabrication of manufacturing items, but all indoors.
Yeah, on the backside, Tennessee to industrial, I think there's a metal manufacturing place back there that does gates and so on.
Mm-hmm.
I don't remember what else is back there at the moment. Do you?
There's a bus barn, I'm going to call it a bus barn, but bus compound, where they go ahead and they rent their buses. But any use that's there that's not permitted under this code would remain as a non-conforming use, would be subject to the non-conforming section of the code. So they can continue to operate as they are. If the use ceases for 6 months, then that's when they would have to be in compliance with this
So
section.
if the property sells, to sell the property, it would have to go under the new zoning requirements, correct or not correct?
Audrey, go ahead.
Thank you. 2 points. First of all, a sale would not trigger whether or not a use loses its nonconforming status or grandfathered status. So, for example, the welding guy, if he sold his decorative, decorative arts or his welding, where he makes gates, he would not. It would not change the status of the property or anybody. Let's say the bus barn, which is a nonconforming use that we would want to slowly get out of there, or soon get out of there. That would not lose it from a point of sale. It would only be if a point of use or abandonment of the use for more than 6 months. As to the actual person who does the welding, he came, as Jackie mentioned, he came before City Council, not City Council, I'm sorry, LPA. And during the LPA, the determination was his type of work is something that falls within the type of work that we contemplate in there, where you might build a loft, you might want somebody, because his gates are somewhat of artistic nature, apparently very expensive. So we did amend the section specifically to include him as decorative arts.
Okay.
Because it is a form of
Yeah,
decorative arts.
and I agree. Let's go back to one continuing issue we have with the WBG properties. I know there's been ongoing dialogue between our council and our counselor, city attorney and the owners. Is that property going to be grandfathered under sale as long as it's used for the same use or not?
If the property, so you have two properties there. You have one that is the triangular parcel,
Right.
and then you have one that is a professional office. And the professional office is permitted by right, so as long as a real estate office is a type of professional office, I just want to look at her to confirm. So that's in the code, so
Okay.
that's consistent.
What
So
about the triangular
the
piece?
triangular piece is a piece of storage, and it's a, like, off-site storage where there is some issues to it. If it was sold as storage, they probably would have issues anyway with the zoning verification letter. That property
I don't know what that,
is
I don't know
more
what you just told me.
Okay.
Would you say it's problematic?
I would say it's problematic.
That's close
And I would
enough.
say the ship has already sailed as far as that use not being permitted on that property. When council in 2009 amended the code, that use became a non-conforming use at that point. And then there's the other issue as to the fence.
John?
The question as to the legality of the use is now one of code enforcement. The change in the regulations that are being proposed today will not have an impact upon that. Those two travel independently of each other.
Right.
So a potential sale will not necessarily be impacted as to impacted one way or another because of this, because if it was determined to be legal through the code enforcement process, it would be legal regardless of this change or not.
Okay, all right, thank you, Mr. Mayor.
All right, thank you very much. Any other
Thank
questions?
you, Audrey, for staying on top of this, too. Thank you.
Other questions? I've got just a couple here. That sliver that was the hash marked that you're going to bring into the area, that was small one right there, is that the railroad right away?
No, sir.
Is it adjacent to it?
Correct. Yes, sir.
So there
It is to the west of the road.
there is a small sliver that's adjacent to the railroad right of way.
Correct.
Like,
Right now, the current boundary only goes to the center line of Industrial Street east. For whatever reason,
That's weird.
we examined the legal. We don't understand why.
I'm sure that's not my fault.
I
but
don't
Bet it is.
believe.
Just checking.
Neither
sure it is
confirm
now.
or deny. We are unsure of why RMPK at that time did not include
Okay.
it into the overall boundary.
And the other question is, you brought up something when it comes to playing entertainment, heaven forbid, playing music, outdoors or indoors, that kind of thing, in the kind of area that we're talking about here. Funny story. Strangely enough, there's more of a problem with residences playing music outside and interrupting people who are trying to dine outside at, cafes and stuff like that, and playing really loud. People in a residence can sit outside and open their doors up in their car and play really loud music, and yet the same little, we'll say cafe, for instance, can't play music. Isn't that weird? Yeah, it's not conducive to having downtown what we actually want to have downtown. If you know what I mean? I'm not doing anything but pointing out that it's a problem. I don't have a solution other than it would be nice to be able to at least do the same thing if you were a cafe and had outside dining, to where people could listen to the music that they wanted to listen to instead of whatever the guy is playing right there just on the other side of the street. See, that's kind of a problem. And as long as you have that existing there, it's going to be tough. You know what I mean?
It's even tougher because if you're talking about somebody playing music in their vehicle, we're preempted by state statute.
Oh, I'm just example. They open the doors up on the house, do whatever they want to do. Yeah, it's tough, but it's hard to explain that to your clients as they're sitting outside trying to enjoy the nice evening there, that you can't play music, but they have to listen to whatever your neighbor chooses to play. It's kind of is there something you can look into? I don't know what other cities do. I'm sure it must be something.
I can look into it because I know actually La Playa Golf Resort was having that issue with a residential neighbor, and it was impeding their wedding events and the ability of their patrons to enjoy outdoor dining. So I can definitely ask Collier County to see if they had similar issues.
Yeah. Okay. All right. I just thought I'd bring it up because these are the kind of things you don't learn until it's kind of late in the game. that, you know, that would be a problem. You think you start a restaurant or something, oh, and I'm gonna have this nice, beautiful outside dining and the trees are beautiful, and then your neighbor plays music till 10 o'clock until you're closed. He can play music like really loud outside, whatever kind of music he wants to, and make you listen to it until you're closed. That's not helpful. Anyway, I don't know what you can do about it, but we should try.
We'll look into it.
Just bringing it up.
Something would be.
Yeah, okay. Anybody have anything else before you go to public comment? Thank you very much, Jackie.
Thank you, Jackie.
Any member of the public wishing to speak at this time, please come forward on this item only, please.
Good afternoon.
Hello.
Greg DeWitt, District 2. I just had one question. I've been coming to council for quite a while now, and I know last couple months we've talked about signage. Does this going to affect the signage at all with the outdoor display? I know we've went round and round and round about signage and display. Is this going to be affected by this when they're talking about display area limits, what they can and can't leave up there? Is that going to be part of the signage problem that we've talked about in the past?
Okay, thank you. Anyone else? Okay, we'll close public comment. Jackie, would you like to answer the gentleman's question?
For the record, Jacqueline Genson, signage is not subject of this amendment at this time. This is for Chapter 4. So there are no proposed changes to the sign code.
Explain what you mean by displayed. Describe
I'm
that.
sorry, it's a display of merchandise for sale.
Okay,
Apologize.
good,
Yes.
thank you. Okay, council, what's your pleasure? Would you like to send this on?
I'll move to second reading.
Move to second reading. Is there a second? Second. Have a motion and a second. Any other discussion? Roll call, please.
Councilman Slakta.
Aye.
Mayor Nelson.
Aye.
Councilman Simmons.
Aye.
Councilman Gibson.
Aye.
Councilman Longcart.
Aye.
Councilman McIntosh.
Okay, thank you very much. First reading of the
Excuse me?
following. Oh, I'm sorry. Did I interrupt someone?
No, she didn't get the mark.
Aye.
She didn't get to vote.
Okay, okay.
It's a
Let
gender,
let
it's
the
a
record
gender
show
thing.
that the mayor was rude
gender
and
thing,
as
yeah.
yet again. Dang it. Gotta be on the ball here, Janet.
Just waiting for my name.
All right, okay, now we can go to the first reading of the next ordinance, and there was no public comment on this one.
That's correct. This is an ordinance of the City of Bonita Springs, Florida, revising Section 7.02, Compensation Plan of the Administrative Regulations Guide, Ordinance 1421, providing for severability, conflicts of law, scrivener's errors, and an effective date. This is a first reading. The ordinance will be scheduled on April 15, 2015, for its second reading and public hearing. If you want me to explain the ordinance, but as you remember, we took the HR ordinance and separated it in two sections. One was the core ordinance that had to be done by ordinances per the personnel manual. Then the other is more of administrative flexibility type provisions. This is one provision. We broke it out into sections. This is one section, which is 7.02. It's a relatively minor change. It's to allow some flexibility on the part of the city manager to provide compensation changes in the merit pay by either a salary increase or lump sum.
Okay. Carl?
Well, just for clarification, just I want to emphasize the difference in the lump sum. For example, somebody may go through an evaluation here, one of our employees, they may earn a 2% increase. Rather than tie that 2% to their base salary, we may want the option to give them 1% to their base salary and 1% lump sum. They're still getting their 2%. It's still all counting towards their retirement, but we don't continually build on their base salary year after year. So, but I don't have that flexibility right now. It's all got to be applied to their base salary, unless, of course, they're over the maximum of the range. Then, of course, we automatically do that lump sum. So we're just looking for that flexibility. That's really what this is all about.
Okay. Council, you have any questions?
No,
Steve?
Mr. Mayor, it's a common technique, and I'd certainly support the change.
Thank you very much. Any other questions, comments? Council, what's your pleasure?
Make a motion.
Second.
Make a motion and a second to send to the second reading. And any other comment? Roll call, please.
Mayor Nelson.
Aye.
Councilman Simmons.
Aye.
Councilman Gibson.
Aye.
Councilman Longcart.
Aye.
Councilman McIntosh.
Aye.
Councilwoman Martin.
Aye.
Councilman Slack.
Aye.
Okay. Audrey, is that, you good?
For now.
Good, good. All right, we have public comment. Any member of the public wishing to speak right now on any city-related item, please come forward.
Hey everybody.
Hello.
Some of you have been getting 2 or 3 or 4 emails from me. My name is Chris Magnus. I'm with Bonita Storage, and we're on West Terry Street. I've got a big long thing about, stuff we do for the city, like using our mitigation credits in the city of Bonita instead of the Everglades. I've got 3 pages here, and if you guys all know what it's about, do you want to just go home early, or do you want me to read this?
Well, you got 4 minutes. You can take as much time as you want of that.
All right. Ben, Carl, John, thank you guys for helping me with the Lee-Trans situation. For those of you who don't know me, my name is Chris Magnus. Many of you know me and my family. We, like most Bonita families, are assets to our community. We contribute to local charities through our companies, personal donations, as well as a lot of our time and local services. Our projects have helped the city grow, prosper, and become more beautiful. One of my responsibilities in high school was mowing the grass on the corner where people used to park their cars with for sale signs on them at what is now the Malloy's Plaza on the corner of Old 41 and Beach Road. Most of you probably know that corner is where the Whale's Tail used to be. We're also expanding our storage facility on Beach Road. Instead of going to the mitigation bank and preserving something somewhere out in the Everglades, we found a way to use our wetland mitigation credits within the city of Bonita Springs to help keep it beautiful. We're mitigating and maintaining wooded property by St. Leo's. This costs more in the long run, but will be a huge benefit to the city. I'm happy to announce that we have all our permits and we're moving ahead with this project on Monday. Of course, we benefit from making the city nicer as well and plan to continue adding assets to the city in future projects. The point that I'm trying to make is that we love our city, and we're looking for our city to stand up for us and stand up for public safety and come to our aid. I sent everyone an email explaining my problem. We've been trying to figure out how we can make a bus shelter work with Lee-Tran, but have not yet found a viable resolution. Has everyone seen the pictures that I sent out in the email, or would anyone like me to hand those out?
I think everybody's.
I don't think I got that email. I don't
Okay.
recall seeing
Oh,
it.
you want to give them to Diane? She can go ahead and hand them out to us.
Oh, okay, perfect. I have pictures from the road and sidewalk. What we did is we had Lee-Tran come and actually place a shelter that was not designed for our location, put it down so we could drive it, see what it looked like, see if we could see our signs, see if we could see our address, our phone number, and you just can't. So I have pictures from the road and sidewalk to demonstrate the blockage or sign wooden curve from the shelter, as well as a demonstration of what they could look like with advertising. I also show the hazard to public pedestrian and bicycle safety on the sidewalk contained in the second email. Oops, didn't delete that for this. The fact that we had them place a shelter on the ground so we could see what it looked like is proof that we have tried to work with what is planned, but see no way that it's good for our business or public safety. We have several legitimate concerns. Our primary concern is losing visibility. Our name, logo, phone number, and address will be blocked from street view by the shelter. Most of our business is from drive-bys, so this would be a huge detriment. In the future, advertising on the bus shelters may be allowed. Since I'm losing time here, it's also going to come over a foot onto the sidewalk. That's going to be a big issue when people are trying to get on and off the bus. People are trying to exercise or commute down this main thoroughfare on from 41 to Old Bonita. What we'd like to do is ask you guys to please delete this from the city plan or just relocate the thing, because it's a huge, huge detriment, and we'd really like it if you guys could help us out with that. Is that something we could finish up today?
Probably not today. We'd have to be put on an agenda, and so you probably just will go ahead and work with staff and see if they want to put it up for consideration there.
I've been trying to figure out who do I work with to do this.
Why don't you meet with Carl and myself
John
after the meeting?
Gucciardo has been working on this and actually was on site, so
Yeah.
he's been handling this.
And
Go ahead.
And depending on the will of the council, when we get to city manager's report, I can give you a brief summary of what we've done to date and what we could do in the future.
Yeah.
But
Well, Chris, what we'll do is we'll go ahead and have a conversation here at the end, towards the end of the meeting there.
Okay.
And we'll see what the best way to get a resolution to this. Okay?
Lee-Trans solutions are leave it as it is, or I have to give them land and pay for everything to do it, which is going to be almost $10,000.
Gotcha.
Or we can move it east and extend the deceleration lane, and that would be between $30,000 and $35,000. And we can't move it west because they're afraid it's too dangerous for their bus drivers.
Got it.
So there's nowhere that we can really make anything work unless we just delete it.
Good. Thank you very much, Chris.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you. Anyone else at this time? Please come forward.
Hi, I'm Deb McLean, publisher of the Banana Peel, and I realize that you all find me very serious and sometimes annoying, but this is a very important thing I'm about to say. Happy birthday, Lydia Pastori.
Thank you. Anyone else this time? Please come forward.
I'm Alberto Bayer, community minister. I used to manage the whale's tail. So I've been here for a while anyways. As you noticed, the mayor gave significant more time than 4 minutes to this individual, as he's allowed. That's never happened to me. I'll probably get cut short as we speak. I'm here today to document another visit to the microphone in front of the elected council that's supposed to be here to govern on our behalf. I was assaulted on the 24th at my own house. One of the deputies that visited the incident is standing right back there. They're supposed to create a report anytime that our tax-paid funds are being used for police to get engaged in any given scenario or incident, if you will. From what I understand, this is a case without precedent. Just like the case when I was wrongfully incarcerated, given that without a citizen's complaint and an affidavit to press charges, the police, namely Captain Reardon, who's now Major Reardon, moved to arrest me without anyone complaining about my having allegedly stolen my own refrigerator out of one of my listings. I lived in jail for 3 months. The story has been told many times. Nobody's done anything about it. In this most recent incident, again without precedent, conceivably, there's no report of the incident. They're supposed to create a call for service incident report. No report. So what do? I contact the liaison to this for the civilians with the police, who happens to be the councilman of my district, Councilman Slachta, and ask him to please favor me with helping me generate a meeting in the office right over here as you walk into City Hall on the right, where we could meet with Captain Day, preferably also his upline, meaning Major Reardon, the city mayor, and the city manager. He didn't help me other than contact a lieutenant who basically gave him the runaround from the feedback that I got from him today by phone, meaning Councilman Slachta. And the communique that I sent by email collectively, whom you all got a copy, asking for an RSVP, I never did receive an answer from any of you. I've been coming to this microphone asking for you all to consider allowing me an item in the agenda where I can move forward to give a presentation, a 10-minute presentation, to create a citizens task force for ethics-related matters, where we, members of the public, much like in the task force for the ecology effort that I actually proposed, along with another one of the members of the public today, who's right back here, whose husband is a member of that task force, where we can address these situations, correct.
Sorry, Mr. Barry, your time's up, and but there is some more time at the end of the meeting, as you know. Okay? Thank you very much. Anyone else this time? Please come forward. Seeing none, that's it for public comment for now, and we are to City Attorney's report. Audrey.
Thank you. I have two items. The first item is regarding elections. The legislature has started doing their amendments, and one of the session laws that has just come out is the one as redesignating the presidential preference primary. Now, for a lot of the council members, just to give a little factual history, we entered into an interlocal agreement with the supervisor of elections to run our elections. The supervisor of elections is not required to run our elections, but it is something that you would want, and much better than having staff try to run it themselves. I think the city clerk will agree on that. As a result, she will not let us do elections in November during the other elections, mainly because the ballot would be so big on the ones that she is mandatory or required to cover. And she has given us a deal, which is if we move our election to the presidential preference primary, we don't pay any additional cost other than our statutory advertising. If we don't move it, if we want to keep it at the same date, you're looking at a range of costs between $3 and $5. We pay actual costs to the supervisor of election, and that could run between $90,000 to about $150,000 additional cost. So it's in the city's best financial interest to do so. Now, understand that if you do agree to move it, we do it by ordinance, and in doing so, we'll save the money, but it does mean for council members, especially those who are term limited out, you will serve an extra 2 months. I don't know if that's good or bad. I'm not passing judgment either way as to how you feel about it, but, or your family members feel about it, but that's out there. In addition, I would make the recommendation, if we do make that change, we also change our qualifying period. Currently, we have a very long qualifying period because when they did the last presidential preference primary change, they said, well, people really need to make sure they get it out there, so it was between the 1st and 14th day. Supervisor of Elections is recommending we do qualifications, and the city clerk handles the qualifications. Does it the same period of time as the state statute, which then would be the 71st day to the 67th day preceding an election or prior to an election, which if it moves to March, would then be, the qualifying would change to January 4th through January 8th. And the actual times are there. It does impact council, not just the additional 2 months, but should a council member decide to run for a different seat, there's a resign to run law, and that does change the time, the date that would come in. I am sending a memo out with those critical dates, and if we change it, we change the ordinance, and then after we do that, Bernie Feliciano will also change those dates. Sorry if this is getting overly complicated. And then all of that information will be dispersed. But
Thank you very much.
It is a substantial savings.
Good. Council, what's your pleasure?
Make the
Move to approve.
I thought that was pretty much no-brainer, right?
Thank you. Okay.
All right, we got a motion and a second to go ahead and go with the presidential primary, correct?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
All
Any
right.
oth-
And the first reading will be your next ordinance.
Okay, good. Thank you very much. Roll call, please.
Councilman Simmons. Aye. Councilman Gibson.
Aye.
Councilman Longcor.
Aye.
Councilman McIntosh.
Aye.
Councilwoman Martin.
Aye.
Councilman Slechta.
Aye.
Mayor Nelson.
Aye. All right, Audrey, what else you have?
The next item will be presented by Assistant City Attorney Alexander Boswell Ebersol.
Alexander.
Good afternoon. This item is a request for permission to advertise an ordinance, and it'll be an ordinance updating or adopting the 2015 edition of the International Property Maintenance Code. Currently, the 2009 edition is adopted, so this will serve as an update.
Okay. All right, council, any questions?
Nope.
Good. Pretty much says it all. What's your pleasure? Want to go ahead and give permission to advertise?
Yep.
Motion, we have a second? We have a second. Any other discussion? Roll call, please.
Councilman Gibson.
Aye.
Councilman Longcor.
Aye.
Councilman McIntosh.
Aye.
Councilwoman Martin.
Aye.
Councilman Slechta.
Aye.
Mayor Nelson.
Aye.
Councilman Simmons.
Aye.
See, Alexander is lawyer and stuff, nothing to it, is there?
I object.
Just that easy, won your first case. City manager's report. Audrey, you have anything else?
No, sir.
City manager, we are up to you.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. First item on the agenda is we'd like to call up Public Works Director Matt Feeney to give council a brief update on what's going on with our big landscaping project, and I think we've got some good news. Matt?
It's finished.
It's finished. Not quite.
No?
No, I don't think so. My name is Matt Feeney.
Excuses.
My name is Matt Feeney, for the record, Public Works Director. And yes, I would like to provide an update on the landscaping project. We have issued a notice to proceed for both projects at East Terry Street as well as US 41 to our contractor. Work is to start next Monday, April 6th. They are ready to go. They've actually, we held a pre-construction meeting earlier last week. They've been turning in submittals to the landscape architect. I have some of the more exciting submittals, not so much the irrigation system that I could pass around for council to take a look at. Primarily right now what's going on is they're submitting cut sheets on all of the system components. One of the more exciting pieces is the actual plant material itself. Those are pictures of trees that, should our landscape architect approve them, will be going in to our projects. I just picked some of the specimens so that you can get an idea of what they look like and sizing. That's primarily what that process is about, is to make sure that we have healthy trees that are to the standard that we set. And it looks like we are going to have some very healthy trees.
Are we going to shellac these ones? There's a version that they look amazing.
We had thought about it, but no, sir. So no, actually the project is going well. Both will be starting simultaneously. It is the same contractor. We've talked to them about our expectations. The US 41 project is sizably larger, but it is scheduled to be substantially complete around June 20th. The East Terry Street project, coincidentally because of the timing that we calculated, is scheduled to be final completion around June 20th. So by basically early June and by the end of the month of June, these projects will be in the ground and we'll be able to enjoy them.
Ready for rainy season.
Yeah.
Yes.
Good deal. Thank you very much. Any questions for Matt? Good.
May I just say thank you?
We're working on the design portion of the next phase with the architect right now. It should be much simpler. We're not on the state roadway. It took some doing to get the modifications with the design. It was an ambitious design on 41 to get FDOT to sign off on it, but we were able to work with them as a partner and get that done. We don't have to really deal with that permitting agency on the other streets. They're actually our local streets, US 41 and Imperial. So our timing should be much, much quicker.
All right. Good. Any other questions? Matt, thank you very much.
Yes, sir.
Well done. Okay, and carry on.
Next item is what we hope is the final approval of the RFQ for the visioning process for Bonita Beach Road. You have before you the entire document. The only thing in yellow are dates that we will need to fill in as we submit this to the market. But all of the meat that you've been seeing over the last few months is in there, and this is all of our required information and requirements ahead of that as well as behind that. In addition to that, the document you see at the back of the background information are 24 firms that we have identified that we think meets at least the criteria that the council has asked for. There's 24 firms here that we will be mailing this to directly, in addition to other outreach opportunities we have in terms of advertising in trade journals and those kinds of things. So we are looking for council's final approval on this and for us to move ahead.
All right. Council?
So moved.
Motion? There's a motion and a second. Any other discussion? Roll call, please.
Councilman Longcart?
Aye.
Councilman McIntosh?
Aye.
Councilwoman Martin?
Aye.
Councilman
Aye.
Slechta? Mayor Nelson?
Aye.
Councilman Simmons?
Aye.
Councilman Gibson?
Aye.
Okay.
Next, I'd like to have John talk about unpaved roads.
The item I have in front of you on the unpaved roads is really just an opportunity for me to bring council up to date on where we are with the project and make sure that, frankly, we're all on the same page in terms of where we're going. This is the third and hopefully the last year of a 3-year phased project to address all of the privately owned unpaved roads in the city. In the first 2 years, as I indicated in the green sheet, we were able to address some of the ones in the more urbanized area, and I think provided a very good product for the people. We've got nothing but good feedback from the property owners along those streets that we did in years 1 and 2. In the third year, our direction from council at the last budget cycle was to go out and try to address all of the remaining privately owned unpaved roads, which we did. We started out with about 27 roads. We did our normal outreach process, which is a series of meetings in the fall through the December. We're down to about 17 out of that original list of roads where the property owners have indicated at least an interest to go forward. This year, as I indicate in the green sheet, though the project is significantly different in the sense that the roads that we're dealing with for the most part are of a much different nature than we did in the first 2 years. They're much more rural in nature and much less developed in the sense that we have much less of a base to work with. And that's reflected then in the price for these. So while we have budgeted $200,000 and access to another $250,000 in reserve dollars that are mentioned in the budget message from last year, if all 17 of these roads were to come into agreement, and that is meaning that they would deliver us a signed license agreement to let us work on the roads and their 20% share, it could be upwards of about $1 million. The truth is, I don't expect that to happen. We've had very good ongoing discussions with a lot of these property owners. It is unlikely that all 17, very unlikely that all 17 of these roads are going to come forward. At this point, all of my point people have the original license agreements that their neighbors will need to sign. They all have an estimate of what their contribution number would be. But frankly, we've told them to hold off for the most part on sending in their checks. Assuming we go ahead tonight, and I expect we will, we'll be going out with an RFP next Monday. That'll hit the streets. It'll take us about a month to get the returns, and we're asking the contractors to give us quotes on each of the individual roadways so that we can actually go back to those property owners with an exact number. And we've told, and they understand that, again, this is going to be significantly more expensive for the most part than some of the other ones. They get it. And at that point, once we know the exact number, they'll be able to decide whether or not they're still in or not in the program. So this is merely an attempt to bring you up to date, to kind of make sure that we're still good with the fact that if it does turn out to be widely accepted, we'll be spending significantly more than we have in the past, but that was anticipated. There is one specific thing that I wouldn't ask that you address tonight, and that is one of the things I listed on the second page of the green sheet in terms of some of the idiosyncrasies of this year's project. One road, for example, Tower Road, if it were to go forward, could cost upwards of almost $300,000. The way our current agreements work for, and Audrey, correct me if I'm wrong on this, but for anything over $200,000, we would normally require a performance bond. We would ask that you waive that for a couple of reasons. One, we have waived the performance bonds in the past on this project. There are no real standards that we're holding a contractor to, so it's very difficult to say you didn't perform to standard. These are unusual projects. And the second thing is we don't want to do anything to impede the ability for contractors to come forward and bid on this project, and a performance bond, frankly, on this type of project could be an impediment to some people bidding. So staff would request that if you would consider that, waiving that one item that we normally would hold to, would be able to go forward with the RFP on Monday and find out what kind of numbers we're dealing with.
Are you going to need a motion to allow you to go out with the RFP, or you can just go ahead and do that?
I don't, Audrey, can I just accept direction on that?
Actually, I think at this, he's correct. It's if the project depends on a lot on how it's structured. If it's like you have something and it's over 200,000, like if you have a group together, it's over 200,000, you have no authority to waive the performance bond. So I would say that the direction would be when you're actually approving the agreements.
Okay, my question was, do we need to give direction so far as authorizing them to, you to
Just
sit
so
up
that he
with an
knows that he
RFP.
will say that the performance bond is intended to be waived.
Okay, that's, I guess that's clear enough.
Right, because you're still awarding the contracts that are going to come back.
What
to
would you like the motion to say? See, it's a tough one, isn't it?
Well,
Audrey?
I know what I'd like it to say.
Yeah, I know.
And that is that you will be waiving the performance bond.
On a future
at the-
contract that's not before you.
At the appropriate time.
Yeah.
Okay.
At the
Good
appropriate
enough.
time. And yet, we don't need to, you can go out and get an RFP on it without us saying, voting to have you go for bid. I'm kind of accustomed to it, when we go out for bid, go out for RFPs, will we authorize you to do that?
Yeah.
Right. The motion should be that you intend for the bond to be waived where possible.
Okay, I give up.
Good enough.
I give up. Okay.
And if you want to authorize the RFP, that would be great.
Oh, okay.
Could I?
Yeah, sure, please, go
Okay,
ahead.
there were some of these roads that I personally, being legally, think that they should be systematically taken off the list and not included in the RFP. And it's because they're roads that probably should not be considered. And I'll give an example. Jefferson Road is close to the Jefferson Flowway. I think it's counterintuitive to be doing asphalt projects near something where we just adopted something to fix the flowway. I think first do no harm. Tower Road is used mostly by heavy equipment. That would probably be torn up based on what we're trying to do here, and because my understanding this project is more for residential. Likewise, in the interchange area, the intent was for, this project is a beautification project. I mean, that's how we legalized it, as opposed to doing it as a straight-out road project. And in that regard, we're trying to eliminate, through our comprehensive plan, residential use, so asking people to pay to further their residential use.
Oh, I thought it was safety, health, and welfare. Darn it. And it's beautification?
This is beautification because it's not a city road. We're not doing it as a city. Don't be funny. So, I mean, I would suggest that you take off Jefferson, Carpenter, Oakland, Tower, and I also have an issue as to Red Dragon, but that's mostly because it's the driveway for the people for Shangri-La Road. which we
Well,
just
since we're
finished.
not asking for you to do an RFP, no, I'm not going to make it that complicated. You can always choose not, council can always choose not to enter into a contract for various reasons that she just laid out. You're just asking for a number of what it would cost. Is that true?
That's right.
So it doesn't hurt to get a price on it to
So
see
you're
what it
going
is.
to bid on it, but then you may reject the bid at the final days.
We may likely reject, we could reject all of them. We could.
Well, that's true, too.
All or part, or none, or one. So I appreciate that, and I think all council have probably been made aware of the fact that some of these may not be chosen for various reasons. So I, for one, I don't mind go ahead and get an RFP on it, because some of the prices might be so big that the underlying owners may choose not to do it anyway.
Exactly.
That may be the determining factor, and you don't have to go through whether it's for looks or whether it's for whatever.
And frankly, I'm sensitive to what Audrey brings up. I'm aware of those same issues. My thought was that we get the bids first and see which ones are still viable, and then make that decision as to whether or not to go forward.
Okay. Council, is there a motion to authorize staff to do an RFP as they've laid out there and possibly do away with the bonding issue?
I'll make the motion.
Make the motion.
Second.
Is there a second? Motion and a second. Any other discussion? Roll call.
Councilman McIntosh?
Aye.
Councilwoman Martin?
Aye.
Councilman
Aye.
Slakta? Mayor Nelson?
Aye.
Councilman Simmons?
Aye.
Councilman Gibson?
No.
Councilman Longcart?
Aye.
I like that, Audrey. I made it nebulous enough where we just kind of,
Except you're having contractors bid on something that they might not be awarded for public projects. so.
and that's always the case.
It is true.
Anyway. But thank you. What else you got?
The next item is an agreement with the Wonder Gardens. The agreement that we have for the $3.5 million loan calls for the council to appoint a member to their governing board of the Bonita Wonder Gardens. We are looking for council to consider an appointment this evening. I will tell you that our second seat, which is named by the city manager, I do plan to appoint our incoming finance director, which I think would be a good addition to the board. So we're asking for council to appoint their member to the Bonita Wonder Gardens Board.
Council, you got any ideas?
Well, I'd like to throw my hat in the ring.
That's what I had to make. Does anybody else, would anybody else like to?
Not that Mike won't do a good job, but Councilwoman Martin has been our go-to person on the Parks and Recreation, all the green space, and I think she ought to be considered as well if we're going to have a discussion about it.
Okay, so
If
we have.
you're interested, I don't know.
Thank you.
We have 2 people interested. Anybody else interested in doing it? Come on, Peter. Come on. Just kidding. Okay. How would you like to do this? Would you just like to do it by? Let's just one at a time. We'll take nominations. Anyone make a motion for either one of these?
I'll nominate Janet Martin.
There's a nomination for Janet. Is there a second to that nomination? I'll second it. Any comments? Roll call.
Councilwoman Martin?
Boy, is that awkward.
Wait.
Yes, please, I'd like to do it.
Councilman Slakta?
Aye.
Mayor Nelson?
Aye.
Councilman Simmons?
I'm confused.
Yeah, me too.
Too.
What?
Closed it
You
for
know,
the
we-
nomination.
I didn't mean to.
Mike,
I didn't
we-
mean to close the. I didn't mean to
You
close the
didn't?
nominations.
Okay.
I meant to nominate Janet, but I assumed there was a nomination since he'd thrown his hat in the ring
How
of
w-
nominating himself.
How would you like to do this?
I don't have an idea how to do this, except I did not intend to close the nominations. So,
Mike, this is your district?
Correct.
Yeah. I'd like to nominate Mike Gibson.
Okay, so we have 2.
is there a second?
Why not? Let's say, okay. In that case, I guess you want to do this by straw ballot. Okay, or not straw ballot, by piece of paper. Go ahead and get us a piece of paper. We'll do this that way. How about that?
Do it verbal or piece of paper.
Okay, we could. Yeah, you want to do that?
Yeah, we'll do verbal.
All right.
And I also
You know,
just-
there's 2 people. I got this. We have 2 nominations. Those who would like Mike Gibson to fill the seat, please raise your hand. Great. Those of you who would like Janet to fill the seat, please raise your hand.
Okay.
Okay. Congratulations, Janet.
Thank you very much.
There you go. See how easy that was?
And I just want to point out section 18 of the charter, you're supposed to do the appointment, so I presume now you took the advice of council and you did it in accordance with that.
So let it be written, so let it be done. There.
Thank you.
Or whatever that's supposed to be. Okay, there you have
Okay,
it.
thank you, Mr. Mayor. I've got one more item.
Great.
And that is just just to let you know, on the legislative side of things, we've been in almost daily contact with our lobbyists up in Tallahassee. I received word today that the bill in the House being pushed by Representative Rodriguez with regards to the boundaries adjustments based upon our voluntary annexations last year is going forward. It's already passed all its committee stops. It's going to the House floor in the next few days, and it's going unamended, and it's going fine. So they continue to monitor it, but that's moving along quite nicely. I'll also let you know that the $1.2 million request we have for stormwater projects downtown is also looking good at this point in time. That will obviously be part of the budget, but we're looking good there as well. So that's it from Tallahassee. You have anything?
Yes.
Okay, go right ahead.
May I ask a question on that?
Yeah,
before
sure,
we
go
go?
ahead.
I'm sorry, Carl. Sometimes I have a hard time understanding all the legal mumbo jumbo, but what it says is that Representative Rodriguez has done what he told us he would do, that the people who asked to come into the city of Bonita Springs, who were initially left out unintentionally, will now be included in the city when this bill passes.
That's correct. And there's been no objection from any Estero folks on this bill.
Okay.
All right.
Or anyone else.
Or anyone else.
Thank you.
Councilman, thank you very much for that explanation. Thank you very much. Yes, John.
I wanted to touch on the situation that Chris Magnus brought up before about Leetran and the bus shelter, if you like. I can kind
Sure,
of give you a
let's do
summary of
that.
what we've done to date and then get direction. So as Chris mentioned, I've met with him and his father at the location. Our partners from Leetran have been out there on multiple occasions. And the issue is this: we're right now in the process, as you know, of installing, I think it's about 6 bus shelters, additional bus shelters along the 2 routes in the city. Last year we had about 5 put in. This year we're going for about 6. And one of those locations that Leetran has determined, and again, we leave it up to them to determine where the locations are properly sited, and they go on based on usage amounts and where they have suitable right-of-way. One of the locations they determined would be along West Terry, just east of US 41, at the location in front of the storage site. The concerns that we heard from Chris was that primarily a concern about the shelter blocking the view of the vehicle traveling public, blocking the view of their sign. And we understood that that's obviously important from the business people's point of view. We met out there. We looked at a couple of different options. Lee-Tran, I believe, at least my opinion is, went above and beyond what I normally would have expected in terms of trying to be accommodating. We actually marked off the location where the site for the original location would be for the shelter. At that time, Chris and his father both offered up, along with the folks from Lee-Tran, 2 different options besides the original one. We had 3 options altogether. One would be to take the footprint, if you can imagine it, of the pad where the shelter would sit and just basically flip it back on its side. So it would be about 10 feet in from where they originally picked it. That would put it on private property. And at that point, I thought at least that the offer from the Magnuses was that they were okay with that. They would give an easement or a deed for that land so that the shelter could be sited there and would consider picking up the cost. That cost was estimated to be about $7,000 for the survey work and the engineering. Obviously, Lee-Tran, from their point of view, they're also spending public dollars and have spent public dollars to design the original location and weren't comfortable in spending additional dollars to accommodate one property owner. So there was talk, and I thought an agreement that the Magnuses would consider paying that additional fee. The third option would be to put it about 300 or so feet to the east. Again, there would be expense involved in that because it would be a different site, different engineering needed, different survey work, and a legal description drawn for that piece. And again, I thought when we left that the Magnuses had considered that as an option too, and it was a matter of figuring out which of the 3 would, or which of the 2 alternatives would be best. Lee-Tran then, and you see in the pictures there that they actually went, took an extra step. In the process of installing one of the other shelters that we have at a different location, they actually had their contractor go out there with a crane and drop a shelter on the original location site outside of the storage so they can get a real-time, real-life view of how it would operate rather than looking at pictures and guessing at what it would look like. And again, at least from my point of view, it's clear that the sight line block of their sign is very limited. As you're traveling, if you stand in one position, yes, it's blocked, but as part of the traveling public, it's only blocked for less than a second as you're traveling that pathway along West Terry. I can understand that that's still not acceptable to the Magnuses, but again, relying on all that Lee-Tran does in terms of their safety standards and their normal criteria they look at, this is an appropriate location as far as they're concerned. So at this point, I'm reluctant to ask Lee-Tran to do something beyond what they would normally do in terms of their siting. Obviously, we could, but I think it's important that we have a shelter somewhere there. It's a heavily used site, at least according to Lee-Tran and their statistics. I'm not sure what more we can do, but at this point we'll take direction from council. If you want us to continue these conversations, or as we had intended, was just to basically leave it up to Lee-Tran and the property owner to try to work out some compromise or put it in the original location.
Yeah, and I have to say that when this was first brought up, I asked John to go ahead and talk to the Magnuses and stuff like that. John and Lee, they have gone way over and above and really done a lot of good hard work. I really appreciate what you've done there. I know it gets frustrating sometimes, and I know it's a lot of work and effort, and to actually go out there and pick it up and set it there to try to show that it is just a shelter. That was just pretty awesome, and I really do appreciate that. So, and I guess what he was asking for is like, gee, they would rather see nothing than see anything else that you could come up with. That's what I think he was getting to at that time. But I personally, the Magnuses are great people. They're great contributors to the community. They go over and above when it comes to their personal involvement in things. But so far as when I have to balance the safety, health, and welfare of the people there that are waiting for a bus, and that, like you said, I think I know when you line a camera up with a shelter and the sign, you can't see it. But I think that if you're, like you said, if you're going down the road, that's just an instant. And I know this won't please the Chris or his father, but I really don't see the problem that they see there. That doesn't mean that it doesn't exist. I just don't see any problem.
And if I can add one more thing, while we were out there, and we do take their concerns very seriously, and while we were out there, one of the other things that they brought up, which perhaps council can give them some comfort on today, is that they were concerned that while there's currently a policy for no advertising on these shelters, a very clearly articulated policy, I think, from council that they don't want advertising on the shelters, they were concerned that at some point that might change. So two things could happen. One is that they could conceivably have a competitor advertising right in front of their business. That would not be satisfactory, I understand it. And the second thing would be that even if it wasn't a competitor, any ad on the shelter could make it more of a visual obstacle than it is now. Right now they're clear, so you can see through them. And if there was any advertising, that would make it more of an obstacle. I think that we tried to be as clear as we could, and I think Lee-Tran even offered to put in writing for them a condition that there shall not be any advertising at that location, so that if some future council decided that they were going to consider advertising, at least at that location, it couldn't be a unilateral decision. Lee-Tran would have committed to no advertising also at that location, so they had comfort from both sides, basically.
Can you legally bind Lee-Tran like that?
I think it would
Can
be
future-
frankly, as binding as this council's. You can't control a future council,
Yeah,
just as
that's true.
Lee-Tran couldn't control the actions of a future Board of County Commissioners. But at least we're trying to offer them as much comfort as we can at this point that that's
Absolutely.
not the intention.
Yeah,
And
okay.
I'm pretty sure by state statute, it's up to the municipality to determine whether bus advertising and bus benches and transit shelters.
Again, this is more symbolic than anything else in terms of being clear about the intention of council and Lee-Tran at this point not to have advertising
Right.
in front of their location.
Council, any comments? Yes, Bill.
I have a question. How many bus things do we have now? 5? Or you said they're adding 6, they're going to have 11?
Yeah.
11?
Yes.
How many people use the bus on that particular location?
I would have to get that information
It'd
from.
be good to know because,
Again, Lee-Tran usually cites these based on usage and available right-of-way.
yeah, well, I appreciate the gentleman coming from the location that he's trying to help out in every way possible. And I have, I think that should be really considered. Is there no other place on Terry Street that you couldn't put it? That's convenient for Lee-Tran to
Not
pick
at
up?
Terry and US 41. Again, the only locations at Terry and US 41 would be either that location or a little bit further east. West you can't go because
Yeah.
there are turnoffs into the plaza.
Well,
And if I might add, Councilmember, too, when you take a look at randomly driving by the bus stop on US 41, just south of Bonita Beach Road, southbound, okay, 41, you see a significant usage of that particular stop, and you see folks uniformed basically for Publix. A lot of their workers use mass transit to get to work. The commonality you have with the site we're talking about is there's also a Publix location at this site as well, in very, very close proximity. And I can certainly, while we can get the numbers, certainly feel like probably that is a significant amount of the use of that particular stop are Publix workers and others working in that center.
Is that line 600? That's what we're talking about?
No, that's not the 600. I believe that's the 150.
Oh, I thought it was, okay.
I think. It's the loop rather than the link.
Yeah, yes, Janet?
I just want to thank Lee-Tran because it sounds like they went above and beyond, and I'm very appreciative to that. Now, that is obviously from where I live, do drive West Terry an awful lot, and that was one of the spots when we were talking about putting in shelters that came to my mind first as needing a shelter because there was nothing there on either side of the street, and the folks stand out there. And Bill, it is a very well-used stop. There's a lot of folks there, so.
A lot of restaurants, a lot of.
Yep.
Yep.
Yep, it's just, as I can understand where the family's coming from, I would like to support what Lee Tran is offering by saying that, you know, council has said over and over that we don't want to muddy up how they look by adding the advertisement. I don't see that changing in any time future, but if there is a way to add that into the language for that, then I think that that's, you know, I fully support that, but I'd also like to see that spot stay.
Okay. Yeah, Peter.
Is there flexibility in the spot? I mean, so that there can still be a location there, yet not interfere with the mag?
Well, again, while we were there were two different alternatives that were discussed, and I thought, conceptually at least, approved by Magnus's, and that is the original location just flipped 10 feet in onto their property, and or moving it about 300 feet to the east. But those do involve an expense, and again, an expense that Lee Tran wasn't comfortable bearing because they've already spent public funds on their original design.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, Chris, come on up.
I appreciate
Here, oh, don't start talking till you get up here, because we want to be sure you get heard. Okay. Go ahead.
Thank you for this opportunity. I appreciate everything that Lee Tran has done as well, but we've also spent a lot of time on this trying to make things work with Lee Tran. No, we don't want to spend $7,000. Lee Tran, if they had come to us to begin with, wouldn't have had to spend that extra money. Now, granted, they're on the right of way. They have the ability to do that. But for crying out loud, this is a family business. I want to pass this down to my son. I get to work with my dad every day. And John, you weren't there. You didn't drive it. I drove it. Mitch from Lee Tran agreed with me. He was in the car with us when we drove it. He said, yeah. And about the advertising, there's no guarantee in the future. And that will completely block our sign. Our other concern is safety. That sidewalk's supposed to be 5 feet. It's going to be less than 4. Not much less than 4, but it's encumbering the sidewalk. When you talk about the use, you have no idea how many people are biking that thing every single day, how many people are walking it. It is the main conduit from 41 to the heart of Bonita. So when you have people bottlenecking right there, I'm afraid people are going to have to step off into the road to get around people congregating at this bus shelter. So if they have to step off into the road, that's a huge danger for anyone who's trying to exercise or walk. Also dangerous for motorists. We have an unbelievable amount of trucks coming in every day out of town. If they've only got a couple seconds to see my sign and my address, they're going to be slamming on their brakes. This is right in front of a fire station. What if a fire truck can't get out onto US 41? I mean, there are so many reasons not to put this shelter. And when I had spoken with you, Ben, my jaw dropped. You supported me, and now it's. What happened? Where's the change of heart here? You know, it's been difficult for me because I haven't had a lot of good direction. Mitch from Lee Tran said, well, if you don't want it here, then talk to council. So I called you. You said, hey, talk to Carl. Carl said, hey, come to this meeting. And I feel like I'm coming here feeling pretty good, and now I am terrified. This is so scary. I just.
Well, let me ask you a
My
question.
jaw's
Let me ask you a question. The one scenario where it was moved backwards, right? Where it was moved back away from the sidewalk.
We'd have to donate land.
Okay. So you'd have to donate land. How far back did that go?
I think it was about 10 feet, right, John?
About 10 feet. So you would have to donate land.
We'd have to donate
Let
land.
me ask this. This is just a suggestion. If you were willing to donate the land, and the city was willing to pick up the engineering survey cost, would that be fair to you?
If we can get the deed for no advertising on it, then I think that.
In other words, the agreement for no advertising on it?
I think we could do that, yeah. If Lee Tran's
Yeah,
willing
because
to.
I think that's a pretty substantial commitment on your part to donate land to
very
move that
big.
back.
Yeah.
So that's just a suggestion, which I think would accomplish.
It's as part of the easement, say no advertising on.
Yeah, it's part of the
Right, it doesn't have
easement.
to be
Yeah, part of the easement that you give them is no advertising on it. And then the city could go ahead, and as a good faith to you, is to go ahead and commit to paying for the surveying and the engineering. Would that be all right for council?
Good to me. Could we vote on that today?
Can you make a motion on that?
I would do that.
We have a motion and a motion and a second? Okay.
Can I just ask that the motion be that it be a not to exceed of $7,000? Because frankly, there may be a way to get it done cheaper than that.
A not to exceed $7,000.
Amend the motion to not exceed 7,000.
Okay. Chris, you good?
You all right with that?
Good.
Sure.
That's why we went through this process, to try to find something like this, okay?
All right.
All right, good.
You good?
All right,
Roll
good.
call.
Roll call, please.
Councilwoman Martin?
Aye.
Councilman Slakta?
Aye.
Mayor Nelson?
Aye.
Councilman Simmons?
Aye.
Councilman Gibson?
Aye.
Councilman Longcart?
Aye.
Councilman McIntosh?
Aye.
Okay. You have anything else?
No, thank you very much.
Good. All right, now we have mayor and council items A. Councilwoman Martin.
Yes, I would like to go ahead and support the resolution for the city to support the effort of opposing the seismic air gun testing in the Gulf of Mexico. When I first heard about this, I said, well, I need to do a little, a little searching of the information on my own, and what I read, I did not like, and that was that I actually read excerpts from the environmental impact study that was done on the Gulf of Mexico and the effect that this can have. And they actually stated in there that it will have a moderate effect, not minimum, but a moderate effect on 138,000 marine mammals. That's unacceptable to me. We're talking about whales. There are whales in the Gulf of Mexico. There's a pod of 50 that are endangered. They're the last of that breed, and we can't have this interrupting their sonar. They beach themselves because of this. And we can't interrupt the migration patterns of our sea turtles. So I just would like to ask council to stand with me and support this, please.
Okay, any other comment? Would you make a motion?
I will. I'll make that motion, please, that we approve this resolution.
There's a motion and there's a second, right here. Any other discussion? Roll call, please.
Councilman Slakta?
Aye.
Mayor Nelson?
Aye.
Councilman Simmons?
Aye.
Councilman Gibson?
Aye.
Councilman Longcart?
Aye.
Councilman McIntosh? Councilwoman Martin?
Aye. Thank you, council.
Okay, item B. Let's see, that's you, Councilman.
That's me, yeah. The racetrack road is obviously in my district, and as you remember from last council meeting, the mayor brought up the issue. I'm very, very familiar with that road, gone out and down it many a times. I understand the traffic that he's talking about. The thing is, after I requested a green sheet be put in, I received an email from Audrey, which talks about the ramifications and the difficulties of making this happen. So I feel like I'm caught between a rock and a hard place. So I'm looking for advice from council on this, because I know we don't have an opportunity because of sunshine law to talk among us. So,
Well, I appreciate you bringing this forward. It's something that's been something I see every morning at 6:15, and it's something. There's a lot of people down there that are riding bikes. I see them coming all the way from 41 Beach Road, every which way. It seems like they're all. That area has become such an industrial hub that so many people working down there, and it just seems to be the kind of reason we all talk about. We've been talking about people riding bicycles and stuff, and I know the complications of the issue. Quite familiar with it. It's a private road, whatever that is, and even though the public seems to have free reign to drive anywhere and everywhere down there, right? It's a safety and health and welfare issue, I think. And I understand it's like, well, if we're at a point where we say, well, we can't do anything, we can't even consider that, there's no solution at all to that, it's just going to stay just like that. How long will it stay just like that? How long will that, a pretty major thoroughfare, and if you've ever been through that intersection there, you know that intersection is pretty busy there, all the way through the dog track, all the way through that property. And I know that there's possibly going to be some improvements done someday on both sides of the road there when someday somebody develops the rest of that property. But for the remainder of the way down to the next two streets down, it's still really busy. And there's lots of right-of-way there and lots of room there. But I for one would like to see at least it explored a little further than, can't do it because it's a private road. Because, and Carl and I have had the discussion about this a little bit, which is in Audrey and I, it's just because something's a private road, I think we've already proved that doesn't mean you can't do something if you set your mind to it and if somebody gives you permission to do something. So that's all that I would ask, is that we kind of think out of the box. I think here in the last year, you've all done a pretty good job of thinking out of the box when there's a problem in the community. Regardless of whether it's the Wonder Gardens or all the unpaved roads or whether it was, none of these things fit a mold. None of these things were possible but you did them. You did them anyway. You found a way. And I think this is one that it's dangerous. It's really dangerous, not only for the people on the bicycles, but for the traveling public. And so far as the bicycles sharing the road, well, tell that to somebody riding a bicycle in the dark at 6 o'clock in the morning with people flying down there to get to work.
And most of them are not in white outfits.
Well, yeah, and I tell you, surprisingly enough, a lot of little white flashing lights, I mean, a lot of stuff like that, but that means very little to somebody going 50, 60 miles an hour down a 2-lane road trying to get to work before 6:30. So, I mean, it's tough. And like I said, no commitment other than,
Take a look at
is there a way possible to do it? And if so, how do you get there and what does it cost? And then you guys can decide whether it's worthy of your
Who
consideration.
actually owns the part where the sidewalk would go? Who owns it?
Well, you see, that's just the question. That's going to have to be part of the investigation.
Exactly. I can tell you that I think it was 1987, the then racetrack carved it out of, they did a special warranty deed and they took it out of their legal description. But any legal history of why they did that or how they did it, I don't know.
On the plat, it shows amazingly 100 feet of
Yeah, it's
right of way,
wide.
the entire thing. I mean, like a gigantic road.
And the other thing is, I mean, there were easements that were granted prior to that. So, I mean, they might have divested themselves for that reason, for industrial park to be built. The industrial park probably should have paid or have some responsibility for that road. I mean, these are things that.
That
you
was
would want to
1980.
explore. In 1973.
Oh, yeah,
So
that,
we-
worse yet, yeah.
Okay.
You're telling me nobody know we don't know who owns the road?
I can tell you who the apparent owner would be
One
is the
person?
people who last
The
divested
dog-
themselves
Is it the
of
dog
it.
track?
That would be who is the last person who divested themselves of ownership.
And the question is, if we're going to have a development of some size, a casino type thing there, wouldn't it be better to wait? Not because I understand what you're saying about the safety factor. Wouldn't it be better to wait? Because if we put sidewalk in and we have a large circumstance comes up there that the dog track wants to put up a bigger building and so forth, they'll probably tear up everything that we did.
I don't believe that their proposed plans in the development agreement contemplate changing a lot to their building. A lot of that is internal.
Well, I
Well,
would beg to differ with,
if,
there's
if,
always a
if I might,
possibility.
in the agreement we had with them, there is an expectation they could build additional square footage of up to 400,000 square feet.
Right.
So a development could happen there someday, absolutely. I mean, outside of the building that's already there.
And of course, what's the cost to build the sidewalk? Is it $100 or $5,000 or $20,000?
And that's the question I would be asking them to do, is to bring that information back to you so you could decide whether you wanted to just pitch it away or whatever.
That's
Peter?
Yeah, I was just curious, and this is probably premature, but are we talking east side of the road, west side of the road? Don't know at this point? Don't know. Okay.
I mean, we're happy. If council wants us to go investigate this, we certainly will. We'll try to figure out if there's a way from here to there, so to speak, and also what the cost might be. And what we're looking at in terms of ownership. We can have all that nailed down.
They could bring it back and it could be completely untenable. You know, maybe something you just can't do, or it may be, hey, this wasn't as bad as we thought it was.
Sure.
Yes.
And just kind of running off on that, just to bring council up to speed, as this year, budget year, kind of works its way through, we've done about $1 million worth of sidewalk projects, both out of our dollars and CDBG dollars, on 3 different projects in the city. And we're already starting on our inventory of remaining sidewalk gaps that we have in the city, so that you'll be seeing that coming forward in the next budget cycle, so we can, methodically trying to go through the ones that we have on the public roads and try to fill some of those gaps. So that's already being worked on for the next budget cycle.
Good. Mike?
Well, then, I wholeheartedly agree that this road needs to be looked at, but I want it as a part of a comprehensive look, and that's what I was going to ask, that we could kind of look at everything, make sure this project's in there, but I want to see where all the sidewalks need to be done.
Understand, though,
and what can be done to.
This one will be a little bit of an outlier because of the ownership questions that we have. Primarily, we stick to just the ones that we know are publicly owned, but we can incorporate that into the mix.
Yeah. And getting, besides the sidewalk, I mean, could we also look at alongside of the road, extra asphalt bib, like up to the lights, just to have, a bike lane there for them to come in instead of them being out in the road. Instead of being kind of hamstrung that we have to do a sidewalk, just, whatever can improve the situation.
Well, and we'll take a look at it from a holistic view
Yeah.
and determine what's most appropriate in that area. Absolutely.
All right. Do you need a motion, or is that direction of staff good enough? Guys, you good?
Good.
Good. Thank you very much, Councilman. Let's start with Peter. Peter, do you have anything for us today?
Other than the fact that Tim Tebow signed with the Florida Tarpons, April Fools, I'm not sure, but wishing everybody a happy Easter. I don't know. I was trying to look it up. I guess it must be April Fools. But if Tim Tebow is a member of the Florida Tarpons, welcome to Lee County. If you're not, come on down and try out anyway. Seriously, happy Easter to all, and that's all I have.
And Mike, what you got?
Just want to wish everybody a happy and safe Easter, and I'm good.
Thank you very much. Bill?
Well, obviously, happy Easter to everyone. I had the opportunity to have lunch at the Shangri-La Hotel on last Friday, and I have to tell you, I actually felt healthier before I went in, and when I left, I feel really healthy because it was excellent. It was very interesting, and by the way, the small dining room was full. It was great, and hopefully, it's starting to move along.
What's going on in there, Bill?
Huh?
What's going on in there?
What's going on in there?
Really healthy. That's good stuff.
Well, the salad. I had Caesar salad with tuna. I mean, it was wonderful.
Oh, that sounds sad.
And a glass of water.
There's no steakhouse open? Sorry.
No,
Okay.
and the dessert was delicious too. It
Oh,
was good.
excellent.
It was good. Thank you, Ben.
I see your future is at dining reviews.
Well, yeah, I got one of them at home.
Okay. Bill, you.
Hey.
Steve, how you doing? Sorry about that.
Okay, just
Bill,
to remind everybody
Steve.
that we won't have another council meeting before Celebrate Bonita. Congratulations on the crew concert. Joe Connor can rip on
Can
the
he?
guitar.
Amazing.
An amazing guy, can do air conditioning and guitar at the same time.
Hmm.
Just a quick compliment. We've got a complicated issue with the Lions Club and the farmers market, and I want to compliment Laura Taylor. I think I'm sure we all saw the email with an update on it, but to find middle ground when we left them the last time was really a lot of not only effort, but just great thinking about how to make this thing work for both parties. So, Laura, thank you. Carl, thank you for the leadership of that group, and best wishes on the holidays, Passover, and Easter. Thank you.
Good. Janet, what do you have for us? Nothing?
April Fools.
Ah! God, you so got me.
Or Celebrate Bonita. You got to put Celebrate Bonita on your calendar. It's next weekend, April the 11th. Everything starts at 2. We've got our headliner this year is Rodney Atkins, and we have Maggie Rose, who's known in Nashville, and then we have Casey Weston coming home. So it's going to be awesome. And then also the Art and Public Places Board sponsors the Chalk Where You Walk contest. So we're looking for sponsorships for that, and we're also looking for artists and teams of artists to participate in that. So that's a lot of fun. And then the next Saturday, April 18th, is Earth Day, and we're doing 4 kids' movies in the park, and our friends at Crew are going to be involved in that also, but the movie is Dr. Seuss's The Lorax. So that's an awesome fit for Earth Day, and that'll be a lot of fun, too. And then the last thing to put on your calendar is April 25th and 26th at Riverside Park, Relay for Life. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Steve.
Yes, sir. First of all, today we had at the American Legion, first ever, the National American Legion commander who's from Nebraska. And the mayor was there to present the key to the city. It was a nice, very, very nice event. And Matt Feeney happened to be the star of the show because his great-grandfather was, in 1933, the national commander, and he was also assistant to the Secretary of the Navy. So there are a lot of pictures taken of Matt and the commander, and Matt has the original cupboard that his great-grandfather wore, and including the speech that he gave at Arlington, 5 pages of it. And so the commander, everybody's taking pictures of it. So like I said, Matt was
That's cool.
thank you, Matt, for being there. Really appreciated that. I believe, Laura, Joanne puts this together. City knows, yeah. Very nice, and I think the American Legion is looking at adopting a road, so I think that's going to be a good thing for us, and I think that's something we all got to look at, adopting a road.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir.
Let's say I just got a couple things. I want to thank John again. Sometimes these things, when I see them come across this, people will make requests, and I know that I bug staff about these things every once in a while. Okay, can you take another look at this? Can you go? But what happened today with this one, I think, was a really good example of where we can end up at, to where we can come to some kind of compromise. And although he's really happy with you and unhappy with me, at least we came to we're exactly where we need to be on that. So thank you for working hard towards that. I know it wasn't real pleasant sometimes, but I think we got a good thing going there. Also, I'd like to say happy birthday to my daughter. Today's my daughter's birthday. It actually is. This is an April Fool. She was born on April Fool's Day. It was hilarious. But no, she's an amazing person. Megan, happy birthday. She's 31 years old today. And on the 28th, were my twin sons' birthday. They're 36 now. That's how old I am. And they all came down there. And their son, or all their kids, Corbin, Gavin, Lane, Karis, and Ronan. I have so many I have to look at their names on a piece of paper now. It's not fair.
Can we
Not
say
fair
happy birthday, Megan?
to be that old. And at this time, that's all I've got.
Hold on.
Was
I
that?
think the council would like to wish your Megan a happy birthday.
Happy
birthday,
birthday,
Megan.
Megan.
Aw. Aw. Wait. Okay, thank you. Yeah, really, just recording you guys. I've been recording you guys all night.
Move to approve the minutes.
Okay, the motion to approve the minutes.
Second.
There's a second. Any other discussion? Roll call, please.
Councilman McIntosh?
Aye.
Councilwoman Martin?
Aye.
Councilman Slackton?
Aye.
Mayor Nelson?
Aye.
Councilman Simmons?
Aye.
Councilman Gibson?
Aye.
Councilman Longcart?
Aye.
Okay, public comment on any city item. Please, anyone wishing to make comment, please come forward.
Good
Hello.
evening. Good evening. For the record, Kathy McGrath. Isn't there a wedding coming up, sir?
Yes, my daughter's getting married on, I think, the 18th. Yeah.
Mhm.
Yes.
Okay. You
Yes.
forgot to mention that. Anyway, you mentioned Celebrate Bonita. Besides Maggie Rose and our little girl, Casey, Jay Frost is going to be the opening act. We've got him coming back. We haven't seen Jay for a couple of years, so he's coming. And the other thing is on Earth Day, Arbor Day, our good friend Steve Trumbull has again started 200 seedlings of milkweed plants, which I will be giving away. So y'all have to come and get your milkweed plant. And really, everyone watching, please, it's such a beautiful family evening. Joanne does such a good job with games, and the kids do these little goodies, and then they get a free candy bar. And it's just a beautiful evening, so please come. Thanks.
Thank you very much. Anyone else this time, please come forward.
Alberto Bayer, Community Ministries. I'm picking up where I left off. On March 27th, I called Jane Swanson, assistant of City Manager Schwing, asked that he please favor me with a call, and he emailed me, Alberto, I am in receipt of your phone call yesterday, as I have asked multiple times. Please place any request you have in writing to me so that we can avoid any confusion and best offer assistance. In response to that, by the way, he copied all of you on that. I, in turn, also replied with copy to all of you. Confidential, delicate, time-sensitive, RSVP. RE 8 violations of compliance with standard procedural protocol by Sergeant Gregory Kirsikian. Thank you for your professional reception to my call for support, Councilman Slakta. I have left a voicemail to the Captain Day, meaning Captain Keith Day, every day since the incident happened, March 24th, requesting a meeting with him to no avail. It would be ideal if you would A, help arrange for the meeting, preferably at the office that is on the right when you walk into City Hall, and B, that you, and preferably also the mayor and the city manager, were present. I remain alert to your feedback. Kindest regards, Alberto Bayer, Missionary Community Ministries at albayer.com. I've received no, how do you call it, best offer assistance. Basically, as usual in all of my cases, there's been negligence and blatant disregard to law, morals, you name it. Again, I'd like endorsement to make a presentation in the next city meeting where I can make the recommendations for the ethics task force. On another topic with regards to the private roads, as I have reported to city management twice in person when they came over to my street, there's a problem with private roads. As you heard John Gucciardo said, there are no standards for the contractors. What that means is the contractors don't make the roads to meet the code in order for the city to take ownership. Therefore, there's 2 private roads on my neighborhood, one of which is where I live, and another one on Moran, very recently installed, and it doesn't meet code, so they'll never be able to transfer ownership to the city. Ours has already lost its maintenance agreement because people aren't willing to contribute the annual fee. So it's eroding in a manner that I have documented to the bone, and I've shown them both. What are one of the problems that it has is ecological. Back in the day when the city was run properly, when Commissioner Judah used to be our representative, he himself helped me once to pump out the water given the floods that used to take place when I visited with him, and I used to be manager of CDX Mortgage, to the river. And eventually Gary Price got involved in engaging in corrective maintenance once the city became a city thereafter. I just make notice to this because I've always been a community service-oriented individual who's triggered proper or addressed to things that merit attention. In the past, prior to the city incorporated, things were done in a manner that is proper and with the proper corrective maintenance. Now that the city is not run competently, what citizens like myself face is neglect and blatant disregard.
Thank you very much, Mr. Bear. Anyone else this time, please come forward. Seeing none, thank you, everyone. This meeting's adjourned.
Thank you, Mayor, Council.
Thank you.